These promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you.
Hi guys, welcome back to exmolex. One of my followers sent me a link to this video on YouTube, Elder Jeffrey R. Holland on chastity and gender, LGBTQ. If that was you who sent that, thank you so much. I forgot to message you back and now I can't find the message, but thank you for sending that to me. This is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to show you this video and respond to it. This was during a Q&A that Jeffrey Holland had with the youth of the church. This was back in 2016, but I hadn't seen this video until a couple weeks ago. When I watched it, I had a lot of thoughts about it, so I figured I would share this video with you so you can see what you think about it, and I'll tell you what I think. Jeffrey R. Holland is one of the 12 apostles in the LDS church, which means that he has one of the highest callings in the church. Now, a lot of people that are members of the Mormon church really like Jeffrey Holland. In fact, this is embarrassing to say, he was one of my favorite apostles when I was a member. Now he's one of my least favorite. And he does tend to do and say things that end up being bad PR for the church. There was a time where he did an interview, I'll leave a link in the description, where he basically lies. It was him that made that musket fire comment. I'll put that up on the screen if I can find it. He was the one that made that taffy pulling comment. I'll try to find that one too. He just says things that he probably shouldn't say. So we'll see what Jeffrey Holland says about this.
That last question is in regards to same-gender attraction. And
I couldn't not mention that he says same-gender attraction, and then there's a sparkly sound with the little subscribe thing popping up. That was really funny to me.
as you all are well aware, those who experience same-gender attraction in the church, they encounter those who encounter this feel alone in the church. They feel scared and they're not sure how they fit into the Lord's kingdom. So if you could meet with them face to face, what message would you share with them?
If I were to tell somebody that's a member of the church and they're part of the queer community and they feel like they don't belong or they don't fit in or whatever, I'd be like, well, maybe that's because the church doesn't make it a very welcoming place for you, and there are other places where you would feel more welcomed and more included and more like there's nothing wrong with you. In the LDS church, it's not okay to be gay. I mean, like, it's okay to be gay, but you can't be gay. Does that make sense? They're not going to punish you because you have same-gender attraction, but if you participate in same-gender attraction within the church, you're going to risk being excommunicated. So, like, yes, you can be gay, but you can't be gay.
Let me respond, and if Elder Hallstrom and Sister Stevens want to join in, please. This is a current, sensitive, complex issue for the church. It's something of the time that we're in.
The thing is, this is not exactly a current issue because people have been gay forever. There have been queer people in the world forever. And the church had a lot of really terrible things to say about queer people back in maybe like the 60s, 70s, 80s. And they've backed off on a lot of that. I think the only current part really is that the church is trying to say a lot nicer things about LGBTQ people these days. Rather than, you know, hellfire and damnation, it's more like same-gender attraction happens and we don't understand why, but we still love those people and they can still have those feelings as long as they don't act on them.
But let me say this to begin a response. I think we have talked altogether too much about gender and altogether too little about chastity.
And you know, just from that, what he's going to say next, right? Like, he's going to go on into everybody in the church gets treated the same. It doesn't matter if you're gay or not or what gender you are. Like, everybody gets treated the same and everybody is expected to be chaste regardless of their gender or their sexual orientation. Everybody is expected to be chaste and follow the law of chastity. Okay, let's just, I know that's what's going to happen. I'm jumping ahead.
The issue is chastity. The issue is not gender. We have written, we have publicized, we have talked, we have put articles in church magazines about attraction. We do not make a judgment about someone's attraction. We don't know why that attraction came that way, and the person doesn't. The one struggling with it doesn't.
Okay, they might say now that they don't know why that happens, but they've talked a lot about this in the past. Like I said, this is not a new thing that the church is having to navigate. This is something that's been around for a long time, and in decades past, church leaders really strongly condemned homosexuality, and they gave reasons as to why it happens. I will put those up on the screen right now. It was either Spencer W. Kimball I'm guessing it was him, or Ezra Taft Benson, that made some comment about how masturbation makes you gay. So maybe these days the church doesn't make a judgment on that, but in the past they most certainly did.
We don't make any attempt to say why that happened or how it happened. It might be as individual as there are those circumstances out across the church.
Again, you say that now. Clearly that's not how the church felt in the past or how the leaders felt in the past, because it was the prophet or apostles who said that. One of the things I said in my last video was that the only thing consistent about the LDS church is its inconsistency. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
What we do say is that we teach chastity. For heterosexuals, for those with homosexual tendencies, whatever, we just go with what the Lord has declared about chastity and sanctity, the use of the body, and the spiritual impact, because it's at least as much spiritual as physical on sexual relationships.
This is what I was talking about, where he's gearing up to say, like, look, we treat everybody the same. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. We just expect you to adhere to the law of chastity, which is all well and good if you're straight, apart from the fact that, you know, you're going to be sexually repressed until you get married. But at least at some point, you can get married and you can have a sex life. What they're expecting queer people to do is live celibate lives. That's completely different.
So please, maybe it helps everybody if we could just shift the discourse a little bit to that subject and talk about chastity, about which the Lord has been quite clear and will, I think, continue to be very clear for all people, for all of his children. Now, when that attraction exists, what we ask for those inclined to a homosexual feeling is exactly what we ask for those with heterosexual feelings. I'm talking to a young single adult group, and that is be faithful, be clean, be chaste. And for you, every blessing of this church is available.
But it's not the same, is it? Because for your average, like, straight person, or even for somebody like me who is bisexual but is straight passing, you can go on and live your life fairly normally as a member of the church, where, you know, you get married, you have sex, you can have kids, you follow this prescribed plan that the church has laid out for you, where it's like, born into the covenant, blessed as a baby, be baptized, go on a mission, get married in the temple, have kids, raise them in the church, teach them to do the exact same thing, blah, 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 blah. And then hopefully, if you have followed all those rules and paid your tithing and done all the arbitrary things that you're supposed to do, you can make it to the celestial kingdom. The church expects everybody to follow the law of chastity. All right. Again, that works great if you're straight. But if you're gay, what happens? You're either going to be celibate for your entire life, which means you're not going to get married. You're not going to have kids. You're not going to raise those kids in the church. It's not going to be this, like, smooth plan that the church has laid out for you. Let's say you're gay, you get married, you end up in a heterosexual relationship, but you don't have the connection that you're looking for. It's so frustrating hearing Jeffrey R. Holland talk about this and just trying to shift the conversation to, like, we expect everybody in the church to adhere to this same thing. We're not expecting any more of you. You just have to be chaste. It's frustrating because they're trying to frame it like being gay isn't a problem. Like, oh no, we don't have an issue with that. You can be gay. It's totally fine. You just need to be chaste. When, like, clearly that's not going to work out the same for somebody who is straight versus somebody who is gay in the church.
In terms of the sacraments, the ordinances, going to the temple, sitting by Elder Hallstrom and Sister Stevens in the general conference, whatever you need and whatever you desire and whatever you hope, those blessings are available to the chaste. We've published that in every way we know how to publish it, and we've put it in our handbooks. It's in the governing handbooks that give direction to the priesthood leaders of the church.
But again, there's this problem that's not the same for people who are straight versus people who are gay, because the straight person can get married and have sex all they want. The gay person either has to get married to somebody that they don't want to have sex with, or they have to be celibate for their whole life. And if they choose to be celibate, they're probably going to have a lot of shame surrounding just that. Because within the church, as we've talked about in the past on this channel, it's really important to start a family. I will put a link in the description. I did a video about this recently where I talked about how much the church has pushed for people to have children, how they taught that birth control was a sin, and how important it was to bring many children into this world to multiply and replenish the earth. So if you go through the church and you never get married and you stay celibate your whole life, you are going to feel shame about that too.
Now, if some members fall short in that, then shame on them. And if I haven't done well enough to teach it, shame on me. That we are not...
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Did he just say shame on the members who are not following this very good? I have some news for you. Shame on all of the previous prophets and apostles who have said and taught horrible things about people who are gay. Dallin H. Oaks, who is currently in the 12 Apostles, has said some really terrible things, awful things about gay people in the past. Spencer W. Kimball, oh my goodness. I will just, right here, I will put up different quotes that prophets and apostles of the church have said in regards to gay people that are just awful. And it boggles my mind that he can sit here and be like, well, shame on some members of the church. It's not like the members of the church that have bad things to say about the LGBTQ community just pulled that out of their ass. They learned that from the church itself.
Issuing an indictment to somebody who has a feeling, to somebody who has an attraction, to somebody who has some complexities in their makeup that I guess neither they nor we fully understand. But we're not making them second-class citizens.
You absolutely are. As we have said, a person that is gay in the church does not have the same opportunities as somebody who is straight, somebody who is non-binary or transgender. The church isn't even going to know what to do with people like that because the church doesn't agree. Like, it's bananas to me that he can sit here and make that claim. Just, it's so untrue. The church has passed so many judgments and said so many terrible things about people in the LGBTQ community. They do not have the same opportunities, and he knows that. It's not like he is just blissfully unaware that people who are gay either have to stay celibate or marry somebody they don't want to have sex with. He is aware of that, but he presents it like everybody is equal. And no, we aren't passing judgment, and we aren't separating anybody. We're not requiring anybody to do anything differently. Like, you are, and you know that you are. Why are you trying to pretend?
Any more than we were talking earlier about sister missionaries who don't go on, or sisters who don't go on missions. We're just talking about a single standard of devotion to the Lord and keeping the commandments. There are commandments. Sometimes that's not publicly popular. Sometimes that's not politically correct to talk about commandments. But there are commandments. And as the Doctrine and Covenants said, commandments, not a few. There are quite a few.
Oh yeah, there are quite a few. There are a lot of really arbitrary things that you're not allowed to do that don't affect anybody else. They don't hurt anybody. But you're not allowed to do them because we said so.
But we would be the first. By we, I mean the general authorities and general officers of the church. We would be the first. We would be on the front line to say that every person is welcome at the church and in our circles and in our association and in our friendship on the basis of everybody trying to keep the commandments, everybody trying to be chaste.
That's interesting, because I thought he was going to say we believe that everybody is welcome in our church and that we be friends with anybody. And I thought he was going to say, based on the fact that we are all children of God, or based on the fact that Jesus said to love one another or love thy neighbor. But he didn't say that. He said based on all of us trying to keep the commandments. I was kind of gearing up to talk about how he says that now, but in the past the church has, really discouraged you from being friends with non-members. Like when I was a child growing up in the church, in the youth church magazine, and in our youth Sunday school lessons, there were always like stories that would talk about you should be around people who are good influences, which means be around other members of the church. You should befriend other Mormon kids. You should stay away from kids that are not Mormon or who, do things that are not up to our standards. So I was thinking I was going to get to talk about that and be like, he says this one thing, but in the church it's really something else. But that's not what he said. What it sounded to me like he was saying here is, everybody is welcome and we should be friends with everybody who tries to keep the commandments. That's very different.
Everybody trying to pay their tithing and keep the word of wisdom and do the things that we do in faithfulness in the church. And so I think a lot of steam can come out of the kettle, and I hope some of the pain can come out of the conversation if we could talk more fundamentally just about the divine standards of chastity and stop talking quite so much about whether that's a heterosexual application or a homosexual application. We're just talking about chastity.
Once again, I don't think he's just blissfully unaware of the fact that what he's saying is othering gay people. He is fully aware that what the church is asking with people to remain chaste is totally different based on if you're gay or if you're straight. Because a gay person in the church cannot get married to another gay person and have a happy gay relationship and go to the temple. You're not allowed. You can't do that. If you are doing that, you are liable to be excommunicated from the church. For all of these talks of being accepting and welcoming and everybody is held to the same standards, it's just frustrating to hear him talking about this and putting it out there for the youth of the church and for anybody else who comes across this to be like, oh, in the Mormon church, it's okay if you're gay as long as you follow the law of chastity, and that's no big deal. But you're not thinking about how that affects that person throughout the rest of their life, where they're not able to have the same opportunities as a straight person would have.
And we'll issue all of our love and all of our help and everything we know to do to help people meet that standard, whomever they are and wherever they are. I hope that can help anybody out there who's struggling. Elder Hallstrom?
Personally, myself, I don't think that's helpful at all. It's like he thinks that this strategy of being like, oh, it doesn't matter, the gay part doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter, none of that matters, it's just all about chastity. Like, that's going to, you know, placate gay people and be like, no, like, don't worry about it, it's totally fine, just be chaste. But also, if you follow this, you're not going to be able to have the same opportunities that somebody in your same position but who is straight will be able to have. A temple marriage and children born in the covenant and, you know, this little plan of salvation that you're supposed to follow to get through all of these different steps to make it to the highest level of heaven, you're not going to have that same thing. Or you're going to go throughout your life feeling like you're less than, feeling like I can't do all of these same things. I can't be a part of the church in the same way that a straight person can. And obviously, like, it's nicer to hear this than it is to hear things like those quotes I showed earlier about how it's an abomination and all of those terrible things. But like, it really just feels like skipping around the issue. And the church still condemns homosexuality. They're just trying to make it more palatable in modern day culture. Anyway, I'm curious to hear what you guys think of all this, so leave a comment, especially if you're a part of the queer community and if you've been a member of the church, especially if you've recently been part of the queer community and a member of the church, because like I said, this was 2016. So if you started hearing this kind of rhetoric and you were a part of the community, I want to know what you thought about it. Huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel, and extra special thank you to Amy, Doug Davis, and Tans for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you guys would like to support the channel, there are links to do so in the description below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!
Promise is strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure.